Today, we're talking about Joshua Tree National Park in California. Some of you may know that I am a national trainer and speaker, and I get to travel all over the country multiple times a year to teach a mindset and business class. That's why we're here in Arkansas for a few weeks. Well, in April and May of this year, one of my cities was College Park, just east of LA. So after that class one week, I drove east into the desert to spend a few days in Joshua Tree National Park and the towns of Joshua Tree and 29 Palms. There are three entrances and visitor centers for Joshua Tree National Park. The southern entrance takes you from I-10 into the park to the Cottonwood Visitor Center. The Joshua Tree Visitor Center is inside the town of Joshua Tree, just to the north. Not to be confused with the Joshua Tree National Park Visitor Center, which is inside the town of 29 Palms, also just to the north. It's actually inside the town instead of inside the park itself. When you enter from those two northern parts, you drive a few miles to the entrance gates where you'll show your pass to get in, or you'll pay the entrance fee of $30. Joshua Tree National Park started as a national monument in 1936 with 825,000 acres being protected from land developers and cacti poachers. Then in 1950, 265,000 acres were removed so that they could be mined. Then in 94, it became a national park and they added back in more space, where today it contains 793,000 acres. Driving and hiking inside the park makes it feel much smaller than it actually is, since over half of that space is designated as wilderness and has no road access. Joshua Tree is the 15th largest of the 63 national parks. I entered through 29 Palms up in the north, where I drove south through Yucca Valley and started to see some Joshua trees along the highway. Fun fact, the Joshua tree isn't really a tree. It's a species of yucca, which is more closely related to the orchid and grasses. It grows only 1 to 3 inches a year and has an average lifespan of 150 years. Their root system is very similar to cacti, very shallow roots that grow just under the surface so that they soak up dew and the occasional rain before it evaporates. Scientists believe that after a winter freeze, the ends of the growing branches are damaged, and that's what stimulates flowering and a new branch developing. So it's really difficult to tell how old each tree is. You can't count the rings like a normal tree, and you can't really know how many winters had freezes in them enough to stimulate a new branch. My first stop in the park was the Cholla Cactus Garden Nature Trail. It is miles down a long downhill winding road. It was such an elevation change that there was a 9-degree temperature change going down into the valley. I had never seen cacti like this before. Some were taller than me, and they're very skinny little cacti with tons of sharp white needles. Some species are called jumping cholla because of how easily they detach from the plant when you slightly brush up against the needles. There are signs throughout the cactus garden warning you not to touch the plants. Then I did a 1.4-mile trail to Arch Rock and Heart Rock. The trails are marked decently, yet it is really easy to get off trail since the path is natural ground or over the rocks. So, because of that, it is super important that you pay attention to where you're going, note any distinct markers in case you get turned around, and always bring more water than you're anticipating using. To get a good feel of as much of the park as possible in 2.5 days, I stayed in a different campground each night. The first was Jumbo Rocks Campground, Site 48. Since I was there for a work trip, I didn't have my RV and I couldn't bring a whole bunch of equipment like a tent and sleeping bag and camping stove. So when picking out my rental car, I got the one whose back seats folded down the flattest, and I bought a cheap blow up mattress from the store and just car camped in the back of it. It got down to 50 degrees at night, which was actually really perfect and very comfortable. Joshua Tree National Park was designated as an international dark sky park in 2017. The mostly full moon that night I was there was so bright that you could easily see the ground and trees and even walk to the campground bathrooms fairly easily without a flashlight. If you'd like to see the Milky Way, I suggest going during a new moon when the sky is darkest. There are 9 campgrounds inside the park, and one reason I chose Jumbo Rocks is because one, I wanted to see the Jumbo Rocks, and two, it's pretty close to a lot of things I was looking to do that next morning. There's a path from the campground to Skull Rock. It's about a 1 mile round trip and definitely worth seeing. It's also fairly close to Split Rock and Face Rock. You can see Split Rock right in the parking lot, and I stayed there for a bit, tanning on a rock in the picnic area, and planned out some more podcast ideas. Then I did Indian Cove Trail, which is an easy half-mile nature trail that features a lot of different animals and plants, especially the Mojave yuccas. This is one of the best places to see a desert tortoise, especially in the spring and fall when they come out of their burrows more often. Now, usually when you think of cool things like slot canyons, you think of Antelope Canyon in Arizona or the Narrows in Zion in Utah. And did you know Joshua Tree has a slot canyon too? It's called the Hall of Horrors. There's a parking lot near several clusters of boulders. And if you're not into tight spaces, don't worry. It's definitely a cool flat hike in and around the groups of rocks. I must have walked that trail twice in both directions looking for the hidden entrance to the Hall of Horrors. It's supposed to be in the smaller rock cluster behind the main ones closer to the parking lot. There is no cell service in most of the park, so I couldn't just Google more specific directions once I was there and I had some difficulty finding it. So definitely look that up before entering the park, exactly which rock cluster, where do you enter from, etc. And even though I couldn't find the hall, I did get to see my first wild rattlesnake, which made that stop totally worth it. Before it got too hot that day, I did one more hike to Lost Horse Mine. It is a 4.2 mile out and back trail with a fairly consistent ascent. That trail feels very remote and a little creepy when you're by yourself. So if that bugs you, definitely opt for a weekend when you'll see more people. It takes you to one of the 300 mines that operated in Joshua Tree National Park territory. The majority of that equipment outside has deteriorated and crumbled, and the mine shaft has actually essentially fallen in on itself. So it does have a high fence around it, yet you can see everything really well. I stayed in Ryan Campground the second night, so as soon as I could check in to my campsite, I did. It was in the 80s with very little shade, so I took a break from being active, tied up my hammock where I could find a little shade, and napped. That evening, I walked to Ryan Ranch. It's only a 1 mile out and back trail from the campground that goes to the remnants of a homestead built in 1896 for J.D. Ryan, who operated Lost Horse Mine. All of a sudden, my cell phone started making noise because I somehow got 1 to 2 bars of service depending where I was standing. So if you ever need to get cell service in the middle of Joshua Tree National Park, just walk around Ryan Ranch. I was craving some civilization at that point, so I head into town. And I saw there was a trivia night at a cool bar and restaurant named Ground Squirrel. Definitely check them out. They have lots of good food and drinks, and it was very busy for trivia night. I planned to play alone because, I was alone. And then I met a cool girl there with some of her friends, and we actually wound up getting like fifth in trivia. The next morning, I woke up in Ryan Campground really early and head to Keys View out west for sunrise. There are a lot of big Joshua trees during that part of the drive. And I think that the western part of the park also has more rock clusters. I left the park out of the Joshua Tree entrance, where I found a cute pop up market and bought a few souvenirs for the family. There was also a pop up bar with a covered area and some music, so I camped out there to do a little bit of work on my laptop. Then I drove one town west to Yucca Valley, where I got a day pass at a gym to work out and take a shower for the first time in a few days. That first shower after hiking in the sun and car camping for 2 days always hits different. Two other cool trails in the park I didn't do this trip, yet will add to my next, are Hidden Valley Trail and Barker Dam Trail. Hidden Valley is named for the low lying area where cattle stealers would hide out. The trail is a 1 mile loop with big rock formations like Cow Rock and educational signs about the plants and wildlife. Barker Dam Trail is another easy 1.1 mile loop. It leads you to, surprise, Barker Dam. The vegetation around the water is much more lush here than other parts of the park, so you're likely to see a lot of wildlife like birds, reptiles, and even desert bighorn occasionally. Pets aren't allowed on any trails in the park. Most of the year, it is way too hot to even think about leaving Fido in the car, and during the winter, the nights get really, really cold, down to the 30s. So do your pups a favor and just leave them at home if you visit. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can follow along and dream big for your journeys on the Great Escape. See you next time, adventurers.